What's going on, guys? In this video, my team and I break down the topic of can you be gaining muscle and strength while in a caloric deficit and vice versa? Can you be losing fat while in a surplus? So let's see what the research says and let's dive on into it. This whole talk about burning fat and gaining muscle at the same time, or actually vice versa. And some people will call these like body recompositions, where sometimes they actually end up being the same weight, but you can see two pictures that look very different. And when I'll kind of talk about like my personal take on it, and then the research, and then my take on it now is, I was very like pro thinking you can do body recomps or you can lose fat and burn muscle at the same time, and then as I would say I progressed, I felt that it got harder. And this is all just like my personal take on it. It was a lot harder for me to do that, and that's when I got more into bulking and cutting cycles. So I would actually just have my goal is I'm going to take the next 12, 16 weeks, increase my calories, and I'm going to put on some more size, and then maintain that for a period of time, see how I feel, see where my strength is at, and then I would do a cutting cycle. And this is, like I said, later on in my journey. Prior to this, I was very pro. I think you can, gain muscle and lose some fat at the same time. And this kind of brings up an interesting point because you'll see it all over the internet that people are doing this, and there are people on both ends of the spectrum. There are people saying that this is possible, and then there's people saying that this isn't possible. So it's an interesting topic for us to look at, and maybe some of you guys are kind of in your journey and maybe have your own thoughts on this or just your own stories. But based on what the reading is it kind of is that gray area of, and that's why I was actually a little bit surprised for, because there wasn't much that was going to be super pro one way, super pro the other way. And I think the more that we're getting into this, there are certain situations where you can actually be losing weight in a caloric deficit while gaining muscle. So I was going to kind of just break down what the evidence had found. Pretty much it, like I said, depends on the context of the person. But let's just say for someone who is in a deficit, so you have someone who's trying to lose weight and gain muscle, this is actually really in favor for someone who is new to lifting, so someone who doesn't have a lot of experience under the barbell or lifting weights. The other thing that this is in favor for is someone who's obese. So we have a couple people in the gym who have had huge transformations. We're talking over 100 pounds. There's multiple people in our gym who have lost over 100 pounds. We have people in the, I'd say, 30 to 50 pound range. I know Tiny has some female clients who have lost that much weight. And throughout this process, they were doing barbell resistance training, and their lifts were going up, so they were getting stronger. We visibly could see changes in the muscle that they had while losing substantial amount of weight. So these are great candidates. So if you're someone who is very overweight and you're getting into your strength training journey or transformation journey, I think, and the evidence supports that you can definitely gain muscle throughout this process while losing the weight. And that's because you have so much weight that can be lost where you can still make those gains. The other thing that will be in favor for supporting this is a high protein diet. So throughout the process of you cutting the weight, keeping your protein intake high. So you can recommend, there's different ranges, but anywhere from 0.8 to, I'll say, 1 to, I think sometimes the highest they went was 1.5 grams per pound of body weight that you have is kind of a good recommendation there. And it's kind of been debunked on the effects that it would have like on your kidneys, unless you are predisposed to some sort of medical condition, which you should talk to your doctor about. It's okay. Like the worst that's going to happen is you get too jacked, which I feel like that's a pretty good problem to have.
Yeah, that's okay.
And there have been some debates in the air of should you go off lean body mass or total body mass. And honestly, for someone who's trying to make good gains and results, it really doesn't matter what number you go off of. If you are obese or if you are just trying to, gain the muscle and lose the fat, anywhere in that prescribed recommended dose would be okay. So that's kind of, and as long as you're also too, like I had a point of not like crash dieting hard, so kind of like monitoring this process, throughout, I think you can gain the muscle while being in a deficit. Another example too is kind of like, say you have someone who is, maybe you've been training for a little bit and they're in a caloric deficit, but they're working on muscles that you, let's say, like haven't been worked on as much, so they're throwing in new like novel stimuluses. I think that you can get an adaptation out of that. Almost it's like if you never really did bicep curls and throughout this deficit you started doing tons and tons of bicep curls, I feel like you can have gains in that specific muscle group, or like something smaller. You do calves, I don't know, like whatever it is. Shout out to Omar Esoff because he doesn't have no calves. I'm just kidding. I'm not hating on no one. But you guys get what I'm saying. So if it's something that's new to them, I think muscle can be grown or gained throughout this process. And the other, and this is actually where I think where I was a little shocked, is that there was research supporting that you could lose weight while in a caloric, or lose fat while in a caloric surplus, which I think is very hard to do, but there was evidence out there supporting that. And I think it all has to do with the energy expenditures, which Matt maybe would know more about in terms of like how calories work. And then you kind of have like two systems, like the building muscle and then there's fat burning, and kind of how that all interplays. But it's not to say that it hasn't happened, because there are studies. Now, will it happen for everybody? There's probably a smaller chance that will happen, but we can't actually say that no, this isn't a thing. And I just found that pretty interesting. So just to kind of recap it, if you are trying to lose weight and gain muscle, it's going to be more in favor if you're obese or if you're new to training. I'd say the further you get along that spectrum in training, it's going to be more in favor for you to have bulking or cutting, right? Or just being in a caloric deficit or a caloric surplus for a period of time. And I think a lot of people are afraid to kind of do that bulking up part of it, because they think, that they're going to add a ton of fat. But if you do it steadily, we're just saying, increase your calories 250 to 500 over a long period of time, you're going to put on some good size, and then when you cut, you'll have more muscle than you did before. And that's kind of like what you see with physique athletes or bodybuilders, how every year, right, they get a little bit bigger, and then they cut down, they look more and more ripped each season that they go into. And that's going to be the best bang for your buck, I would say, as you get further down in that spectrum of how much progress or how long you've been training for. I think it's kind of the route to go. Right. You guys have any personal stories or thoughts on any of that?
You killed that topic, so.
Bro, I did my homework. We've been up late. Like, I haven't been up late in a while because I'm like an old man now, like falling asleep. But I'm starting to get into this again. Like, I can feel myself like, all right, we got to put out good content. Yeah, so I'm like doing all different research. Trying to separate the facts from the fiction, looking up terms, because there's some big ass words in these studies, and I'm like, ooh man, I don't know, but have you ever tried to do like did you ever have a period where maybe you were losing weight and gaining muscle, or vice versa?
The only thing I've really done is like the staying the same body weight recomp. And that's so incredibly slow. Like, the changes in your body are so minute that I just recommend doing the weight gain, like a controlled weight gain, and then doing a controlled weight cut.
Yeah.
It's not worth it to say that like same weight. You are probably going to make a little bit more muscle gains, but it's going to be so frustratingly slow. It's just like
I would say I've probably been around. I want to say like 238 to 245 for over a year and a half. So like that same weight. My strength has definitely increased, which has to do with there's a ton of factors involved with it. Right. But I would say are minute features. But like Matt said, the degree in which I could make, if I was just like, I'm getting to 265, you know what I mean? And then I cut, it would happen a lot faster. Right. Now for me, I just like it because I like to sit where I'm going to compete at a year-round time, so it's not like I'm doing any drastic cuts or anything like that. Right. But like Matt would say, I would say little baby. Little process. What about you? How's your weight fluctuated over time? You don't ask women this question, but we did it. We did it. We don't need numbers, all right? We don't need numbers. Have you gained weight, you'd say, over the last 3 years?
Yes.
And how many pounds do you think total you've gained?
Probably 10.
I would say like 8 to 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which for a woman, like, I don't want to scare all the women, because like when you hear that,
you're not scaring them because you're going to dive into your topic a little bit later.
Yeah, and I'll go into that. But like if you would have told me that, I probably would have freaked out years ago. But it's all good. It's actually something I wish I probably would have done sooner. But
and you've gone through periods where we've increased your calories, like by manipulating proteins, like your macros, carbs, proteins, fats, to get that, and then typically you do the
and basically the 8 to 10 pounds comes from just purely building muscle. I was just like
She's a lean, mean, stacked, jacked machine.
I had no muscle, honestly. We talk about it, but we won't get into that. We should have done it before and after, because primarily
pretty
probably
crazy.
my legs just don't even look.
Yeah.
You didn't know me then, but they were
What's
just
a
like
squat?
lean runner legs. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I had no hamstrings. I had like no calves. They were just, barely there. But
Yeah.
anyway, but it's good. It's a
Alright.
good thing.
Yeah. So basically, to wrap it up, I feel like most people need to figure out their goals and then go towards that goal, and that will probably be the best thing. You know what I mean? I know it's pretty vague, but I think there's a lot of truth to that. Like, if you want to gain muscle and size and you've been training for a while, focus on being in a little bit caloric surplus. It's not gonna be the scariest thing if you add a couple pounds.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna get these strength gains. And if you want to lose weight, focus on being in the deficit. Don't try to spend too much time doing both at the same time unless you followed the criteria which I had mentioned previously.